This presentation will show how the persuasive nature of business communication is performed through the use of meta-discourse features in business emails and letters. Awareness of the rhetorical power provided by meta-discourse in this text genre production is paramount for their professional development, including for the teaching of business English. This is the outline of my presentation. Based on the theoretical framework underlying the study, I will introduce the objectives of the investigation and the research questions. I will provide first analysis of a sample data and the first findings, as this work is still in progress. I will show you some examples taken from the transcripts of the original corpora. And finally, I will provide some general indications for the English for Business communication class and some provisional conclusions. These are some of the seminal works on meta-discourse that I took into consideration for my investigation. They include Van de Koppel and Hyland's most influential work on meta-discourse in academic discourse and on the pragmatic and persuasive role of meta-discourse markers in professional discourse. For what concerns the notions of business English, I refer to Bhatia and Bremer 2012 and to Widowson 1998 for the relevance of registers in domains of professional and occupational activities, which came to play a fundamental role in teaching English for business communication. In this paper, I will refer to business English as to English used for business purposes in international and intercultural contexts as a common means of communication by people who are not necessarily native speakers of English. Bhatia and Bremer refer to business English as to a register where communication is also a matter of having a desired impact on the members of a specifically relevant discourse community and of recognizing conventions for how the members of that community negotiate meaning in professional documents. Accordingly, I will be looking into business emails and letters as productions of a specific discourse community, and more specifically, I will be looking at interpersonal features of discourse or meta-discourse features as important means to negotiate interactional meanings in a text, to facilitate communication, support position, increase readability, and build a relationship with a given audience, which must be analyzed as part of a community of practices, values, and ideas. Emails are usually very synthetic texts, therefore the linguistic choice is available to the author to create a propositional content as well as interpersonal engagement may be limited. However, emails have gradually substituted letters in business communication, and the features typical of a business letter may have been transferred to the business email, including meta-discourse, as they involve the same disciplinary community. With this in mind, my first objective is to find out what meta-discourse features are used in business emails and letters, then to find out if they can be decoded as ways to signal writers' attitudes towards the content and their audience, if they contribute to their persuasive impact, and eventually I will attempt some considerations with regards to their relevance in the English for Business communication class. To answer my research questions, I have adopted Hyland's meta-discourse model of reference to analyze my data. As the title of my presentation indicates, my investigation deals with emails sent within a corporate context and business letters. Therefore, I will apply this framework to texts written for professional purposes rather than to academic texts, as it was Hyland's original purpose. In my study, I'm examining the use of interactive and interactional meta-discoursal features in business English written production as available in the Enron email dataset and in the business letter corpus. The Enron email dataset is a database of about 0.5 million email messages generated by 150 employees, mostly senior managers of the Enron Corporation in the years leading up to the company's collapse in December 2001. A copy of the email database was purchased and released by the MIT to researchers. This is the May 7th, 2015 version, and it is only partially cleaned of metadata, attachments, repetitions, and sensitive data. However, it is considered the only substantial collection of real emails that is public. The business letter corpus contains over 11,000 business-related documents, about 1 million word tokens of US and UK samples of international written business communication documents in the form of business letters and memorandums, emails, and other business-related documents dated from April 1997 to March through March 1998. The corpus was compiled by Yasumasa Someya, and it was made available for corpus research through online K-Week Concordancer. For the purposes of my investigation, I have selected a subset of sent emails for a total of 1 million tokens from the Enron email dataset to match the size of the business letter corpus. Both corpora include a variety of documents and various kinds of inter-office correspondence. The sent mail subset of the Enron email dataset includes 4,200 documents in 280 archived files, 1,520 tokens, and 997,000 words, while the business letter corpus is gathered in 34 archived files with 10,500 documents, a little more than a million words, and 1,114,000 tokens. I carried out a quantitative analysis with both corpora through two different corpus managers and text analysis software. For the Enron email corpus, I used the Sketch Engine, and for the business letter dataset, I used the online K-Week Concordancer where the corpus is uploaded. I first conducted a concordance search for the items in Highland's 2005 list. Then I manually checked the concordance lines containing the occurrence of the items I was interested in order to ensure that they were functioning as meta-discourse, and I excluded extraneous samples. In this presentation, I will provide some of the first findings regarding three interactional metadiscoursal features that I found to be essential for the interactional perspective. Firstly, I will take into account self-mention markers that reveal the presence of the writer in the text. I found a high rate of occurrences for the first person singular of the personal pronoun I in both corpora, but almost the double in the business letter corpus with respect to the Enron email dataset. Other features with high frequency in the BLC are the first person plural of the personal pronoun we, with almost 16,000 occurrences with respect to the almost 5,000 of the AED, the first personal pronoun of the possessive adjective our, with almost 31,000 occurrences with respect to the 1,300 of the AED, the first person singular object pronoun me, with almost 30,000 occurrences in the BLC compared to the 3,500 of the AED, and the first person plural object pronoun us, with almost 17,000 occurrences in the BLC and about 900 only in the AED. The high number of occurrences has not allowed so far to distinguish between exclusive and inclusive we. The first text sample comes from the emails dataset. It is a straightforward informational text where the writer probably only expects the reader to take notice of the piece of information provided and to act. The second text sample comes from the BLC. It is a part of a reply to a previous customer's request letter, and with this sentence the writer disengages herself from the responsibility of providing the solicited request. The third text sample comes from the BLC as well. Specifically, the sentence comes from a cover letter for a job application where there is a persistent, strong presence of the writer who clearly has a persuasive interest. The fourth text sample comes from the ED. It is a first part of a reminder email on the part of the manager to her team. The personal pronouns state the distance between the writer and the reader in terms of roles and duties. However, the distance is shortened by the use of we inclusive, marking the involvement of both the writer and the readers in the work group. Another type of interactional features that I am presenting here are the engagement markers. These devices explicitly address the readers either to focus their attention or include them as discourse participants. All engagement markers listed by Highlands were searched in the two corpora, and this table shows the features with the highest occurrence. The personal pronoun you and the possessive your are the features with the highest presence in both corpora, although much more frequent in the business letter corpus. The presence of you and your is far higher than that of the other engagement markers, which have a meaningful presence. These are all verbs. Among them, let, let's, let me are imperative forms. Do not, as an imperative form, has 162 occurrences in the email dataset and 143 occurrences in the letter corpus, most of which are courtesy formulas. I haven't been able to quantify the presence of other imperative forms yet, since the manual scrutiny of all items is not finished. Contrary to what expected, the presence of modal verb forms such as have to, must, need to, ought, or should, shouldn't is pretty reduced, almost irrelevant in this corpora. In the first and second text samples from the BLC, the personal pronoun you or we are used to acknowledge directly the reader's expectations and to reassure them that they will be addressed and met. Besides, the direct address to the readers comes in both cases with a careful choice of reassuring verb formulas such as you can be sure or we can help you, I'm sure. The third text sample shows formulaic language characterizing the BLC, which is where the sample comes from. Here we have both a direct address to the reader with the modal verb should you and a negative imperative do not hesitate, used rhetorically to pull the reader into the discourse and to guide interpretation, which is the purpose of the engagement markers. The fourth text sample is from the ED. The whole email is a list of instructions given in the imperative form, including the negative form do not extend, which is not part of a formulaic language, although mitigated by please. The apparently almost unfriendly and cold email develops the interactional dimension through the basic engagement markers I, you, and your, with which the writer rhetorically positions the reader, predicting possible objections and guiding her to particular interpretations. Still within the interactional dimension, I searched and counted all hedges from Highland's list, and I am reporting in this table only the most frequent ones in the corpora, the modal verbs. Modality indicates the degree of confidence, prudence, and caution in expressing a certain knowledge. As you can see from the table, the modal verbs can and would appear to be among the most frequent edges, Also, the presence of can is almost double in the business letter corpus with respect to the other corpus. Similarly, the presence of would is much higher in the latter than in the former corpus. This table shows some of the other hedges I searched. The only adverb occurring with a meaningful frequency is about, while the other adverbs, nominal or verbal forms, classifiable as hedges, both to mitigate the strength of a statement and to present information as a personal opinion, are used very seldom in both emails and letters. Formulaic strings such as from my perspective, in my opinion, to my knowledge are hardly or not used at all. I think is relatively the most frequently used among the other hedges after about. The first three text samples show the use of I think. To mitigate the strength of a statement, there could also be a criticism in the first example from the BLC, as a personal pleasing opinion to introduce a decision made at higher levels in the second example from the BLC as well, and to give directions on what to do in the form of a personal suggestion, apparently opening the position to discussion and negotiation in the third example from the EED. The fourth text sample from the EED, besides I thought, I think, shows a sequence of modal verbs in the conditional form to mitigate what is only apparently a suggestion. Making a recap of the first findings I have presented here, which are provisional results of my research, I can say that they already partially answer my questions as expected. The occurrences of self-mention markers, engagement markers, and hedges in the business letter corpus greatly outnumber those in the Enron email dataset, also in terms of choice of devices. Emails seem to be more directive and direct, less formal and stereotypical than letters, where the writer uses more meta-discourse features to engage the reader in the interactional exchange. However, in their different economy, emails do, as well as letters, fulfill the writer's need to negotiate meaning and the relationship with the reader. In both text types, the commentaries used are not just ornamentation, but actually persuasively reinforce the speaker's attitudes and stance, and present information in ways which engage the participants as members of a community. Going to my last question, Business English as a branch of ESP specifically refers to the teaching of non-native speakers of English who need to learn to use the language to communicate successfully. Business communication studies have shown that in the teaching of English for business purposes, communication is more than knowing the semantics of lexicography. In fact, it is a matter of understanding why members of a specific business or a disciplinary community communicate the way they do. Studying the concrete use of meta-discourse strategies as a powerful tool for persuasion can help students to learn to communicate for achieving business-oriented goals in their professional community. The studies on business communication of the last decades, and especially on business English as a lingua franca, such as Ehrenreich 2010 and Kankarantan 2006, that focus on mail communication, have highlighted the centrality of email in the globalized workplace. They have also shown how different the real-world experienced by practitioners is from the model offered by textbooks, as reported by Evans 2012. For time constraints, I'm providing here just a list of do's and don'ts for the Business English class. In order for the Business English students to acquire refined insight on business communication devices such as Metadiscourse, and to become successful communicators, practitioners need to bring real models of reference into the classroom to analyze with the students and to provide tasks that include all participants to the interactional exchange. As Evans points out, the available materials tend to provide passages rather than genres, discrete sentence level exercises rather than tasks, templates to fill in rather than real texts to analyze, understand, and react to. In this respect, corpus analysis tools could become a great resource for the business English class. Thank you for your attention.